It is. Game one's here. In the upper right, Group B, our first map, our first look at the best player in the world. Let's see what he has in store for us. It's Serral.
He faces off against the blue Protoss in the bottom left. He is nice. You see that pylon, gas, then gateway. Definitely somebody who has pulled a couple of tricks out of. I think, well, Haas is a great player to mention as far as inspiration goes. There's only a few that have tried to learn from. What did you call it? The Book of Haas. I do like that. I like that quite a bit. But that's the other toughest thing, right? As far as Serral is concerned, if we were to remove context from this game and just kind of take a zoomed out view, Serral historically has always been a very difficult player to break with those cheese. He's somebody that's typically been very comfortable dealing with the proxy racks, the cannon rush of old, back when people were proxy shield battering and immortaling and all that. Serral was one of the only guys that could deal with it. So when it comes to crazy builds, when it comes to crazy strategies, that's never really seemed like the way forward for dealing with him. And that's one of the reasons why he had such a consistent, stable career. Didn't really rely too much on gimmicks himself, you know? Serral's not the guy that you look at in a matchup and think, oh, he's going for the swarm host. But sometimes he will. It's just, there's nothing that he sticks to that long that you're like, oh, I can catch on to this. He plays mostly the similar stuff to what everybody else does. He does it at a really high level. And I think, well, the expectation is that he's going to be a little more human because obviously he's got obligations to his country, he's got obligations to his people, and there's nothing wrong with him, you know, taking care of that stuff. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's also the important thing when we talk about the storyline. Serral on military, yes, he's practicing. Yes, he's got that what is it? The apartment right off base, and you know, but he still can't dedicate as much time. The other story here is we have not Serral. I don't think, unless it's played like one Sunday WTL series, we haven't seen Serral play on the new patch. There is a new patch that has entered the meta that has, by all accounts, made increased Protoss PvZ win rate pretty significantly. Zerg players are now struggling with some things that they didn't used to. Although the funny thing is, they're struggling with Immortals. Is the big complaints I hear in Immortals weren't really changed. So, yeah, but it's everything else, like damage. You know, you lose value elsewhere, and Broodlords aren't as strong, etc., etc. Point being, is as curious as I am to see what kind of form Serral's in, I'm also curious to see what Serral's solution is to these ideas that have been plaguing Zerg players. Immortal Charge Lot Storm and kind of these Sky Toss transitions and things that just seem to be a little bit stronger than they used to be.
Yeah, it's I think that's the other part too, is that Serral is a player that I think is also very smart, and over time, strategies that other players would typically complain about or struggle with, Serral's response has always just been to find a way to win. And that's one of the reasons why it's still important to have him here at these events, even if the mechanical skill is perceivably going to be lower, right? Even if there's going to be that little air of doubt now, right? That he hasn't just won everything that he's played in since that started. But we will still get to see how he wants to approach the map. You're still going to see, okay, well, this is where he's going to take the third base. He's not going to rush to try and open up the side over here. We learn a little bit about how he thinks about this map, and it can still help to inform future decisions by other players and the development of the meta and how people deal with that kind of stuff. So for all those reasons, that's another reason why this should be an interesting one to see, because maybe Nice is going to show us that doesn't matter what you try to do, and he's got something cooking up here that should be really strong too. As you mentioned, very defensible map, and we talked about it, but there's only like 2 lanes. It's like a 2-lane MOBA map. That's what Crimson Court is until you open up the outside. You just got 2 very direct paths. There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere you're proxying stuff and not getting seen. So everything has to be straight up. Speaking of, he's getting a lot of links to try and shut down this third base of Nice.
I gotta say, I'm a little surprised that Nice is playing this as straight up as he is. Third base, triple Oracle. Like, we know the script of this game. We've seen it 1,000 times now, pretty much ever since Hero introduced this version of the style a bit ago. But he forced the cancel on the third base at its like 99%. We saw the shimmer, right, turn into actual structure, and that's when the cancel happened. So I'm very surprised to see Nice playing this as straight up as he is, and he's not even allowed to, because Serral sends just a couple more links than he might otherwise do, or other Zerg players might do, gets a cancel on the third base, and all of a sudden Nice is Well, he's got a couple drones, Nate. That's something. But in general, he's trying to go for a macro game. Their base is canceled. Where do you go from here?
Yeah, that's the uncomfortable part too, right? Because what was the conversation that we were just having? Oh, it's limited lanes, it's limited space. It's hard to slip something by without you seeing it. Kind of was aware of what some of the Zergling movement earlier, but that's exactly the kind of stuff that Serral is going to do. Is he's going to find and create those opportunities. Now he comes in again. That's a pretty nice stasis trap. He's going to get quite a few of the Zerglings stuck over here, and I like that. Nice steps out. You can see he's saying, I don't want these to finish, and then him try to go for a surround if I'm in a bad spot trying to catch him. So I kind of like that he stepped out in that situation. He's like, you just have less to defend. I want to take advantage of this little window. I'm not going to just warp a bunch of stuff in that I wouldn't have had before and just try and surround your lings. That being said, it does allow the lings to kill a few pros. So there should have been something there.
I think he thought the Oracle would be fine, but you know, not quite. The Queens are going to step forward here. Stalkers, it's a lot of damage on this fourth base. His lings are going to try to run around. Stasis Trap gets, very nicely there. Nice. Stasis Trap gets triggered. And remember, Nate, these are blinkless Stalkers. Blink is not done for a while now. So I appreciate the pressure. You have these, 5 Stalkers. You got a couple Oracles. Like, this represents value. But there's no way out, right? If Serral suddenly swallowed a bunch of units, you'd have to recall. It would be dicey. Luckily, that doesn't really happen. And now
he's lucky he didn't just lose all the Stalkers out there, really, too, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like that was a close call. Serral gets the bait on the one, and if he pins him up on the side and gets the surround, and the Queens can shoot a little, like those are the kinds of things that are tough. But I like this. We're seeing some pretty sharp control out of both of them, and I think with 4 Oracles, the potential for this to get ugly is also very real too. So Serral's going to step back. He's trying not to get baited or pulled too far away from this, because he recognizes that the hatchery is pretty low. So as long as he's not close enough to attack that, there's no real reason for him to commit to a big fight. Obviously, the Rich Vespine Geyser is one thing, but losing the base loses access to all of it. So.
And look at this. We're not talking about triple Oracle anymore. We're talking about quad Oracle, which does have Queen killing power. Now, unfortunately for Nice, that was a lot of Queens. Serral on point with Transfuse is just a dead Oracle. But the other thing that's interesting here is, that's a significant stasis trap. I'm of two minds about, I said, look, I'm surprised that we're seeing Nice play this as straight up as he is. And I really like Serral's series planning on this map. We're playing this as straight up as it is, because it kind of makes sense for Nice to kind of test him. Like, okay, Serral, how good are you actually? Are you in form? And that might make him play a little bit more straight up on a map that is really bad for Zerg if Protoss players get aggressive. So I'm going to put that to design. And at this point, the answer is Serral is very good. And playing straight up against him is still a mistake, because Serral 4 bases and runs Queen across, and you have a really short rush distance, and Nice is kind of dead.
What's that video they've always play when like the guy comes back to the sports team after he gets traded to 3 different teams over 5 years? It's like they do the I'm coming home and everything. I see Serral making this counter push. Right as the attack starts, all the overlords just go fan out in a line and create the creep highway, like just while he's doing everything, and then just that right there looks exactly like it. A very straight up standard macro opener gets max value out of his lings to deny the 3rd base. The economy isn't there for Nice to do the push that he probably wanted to do, and it turns into Serral being able to find a way to get the dubs. So just another example of that's some real Giga Chad energy right there. Serral with a strong start to this one.
Nate, it's kind of funny. I'm looking at this. Earlier today, we talked about how you build a bunch of overlords, you can bluff someone out of a game. You can win a game with just overlords. I certainly didn't quite do that, but I would like to think he was listening. He's like, I'm gonna vindicate the B stream just a little bit. We're gonna put overlords. It makes sense, right, to run overlords, to drop creep across the map like that, because the space between the Zerg 4th base and the Protoss 3rd is so short that you can cover it with like 4 overlords worth of creep. It makes a lot of sense, but I choose to believe that this was our fault.
Yeah, well, we willed it, Hey, what is it? Your perception does shape your reality to some degree, even if there are things written down in places that state otherwise, right? We are here. We willed Serral into showing us how to beat Protoss on Crimson Court, and all I have to say for that is you're welcome. Hopefully, he shows us some more cool stuff.
All it takes, though, Nate, is the Protoss player not playing the really strong strat on Crimson Court. So I don't know. Is this Serral showing us how to beat Protoss on Crimson Court, or is this You know,
that's just one map of many, darling. There's one map of many, darling, coming up this weekend. I hope to see him educate many of us on what is it, the complaints for this season in this map pool.
So Nate, are we gonna get superhero costumes by the end of this? Are you like fully on your Edna mode era at this point? You know,
I always enjoy the pursuit of pragmatic solutions. It's easy to say that things can't be done or that things are broken or things are unstoppable. What's difficult to do is to figure out the whys and the wheres and to try and come up with solutions for these things, especially when we know that we're going to have to play on these maps for probably a little while longer, even if there is going to be a change, right? So we could just lose all of these games, or we could try to do something about it. That's how I like to think about it. That's all.
I prefer my approach of just losing all the games, but one player who is not losing all the games, at the bottom left, he's up 1. It's Serral.
And his opponent in the top right in blue, he is Nice. It's like back in the day, right? When you really just saw, I think, like 2 or 3 guys. It was basically like Maru and TY at the top, and like all the Terran salt mines were open. And they're like, well, there is one guy who finds a way to deal with everything, and that's kind of like how things ended up. It was like, well, yeah, as long as somebody can figure this out, there's an implication that other players could eventually find ways to do it. So, you know, these cycles, they do sometimes take a little while to go through. But I think probably the most maybe natural part of it is I feel like Zerg always does worse at the beginning of any new patch too, right? They usually are the ones that have to be responsive with their compositions and unit choice. So it kind of makes sense that until somebody does kind of like figure it out, you know, it's gonna seem a lot worse than it is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Generally, you have to the Zergs have to figure out how to play the maps, and certainly with maps that
I just put a lot of my confidence in Serral to just figure shit out, right? But the thing is, that's what he does. So I'm willing to trust him. That's all.
The second question is whether, if Serral figures out how to do something, is it reproducible? Is it something where, in fairness, Serral's hasn't been one of these players where, you know, as a Terran player, I'm sure you remember the whole just play like Maru, and it's like, well, I can't play like Maru. You know?
Literally just referenced that. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
But like the difference was on that one's like, yeah, I can't play just like Mario. I don't have that control. I don't have that micro and macro and multitasking to be able to, you know, snipe every Colossus like Mario did. Whereas it's like, well, if Innovation's got something figured out, I can play just like Innovation. You know, I can have the idea.
It is another great reminder that StarCraft is just a tough game. It is a tough game. Sometimes even in the closest of games, it can still feel like an absolutely crushing defeat. And that's another area where the mental game becomes key, right? In fact, I'll take that as a tee off to say it's another reason why Serral, I think, has been so well over the time. You know, you don't really see him hit super low emotional lows. He doesn't show it, but I also think it says a lot that you don't see super high emotional highs from him. He doesn't try to ride the roller coaster up and down, right? He's all about keeping it consistent and stable. And I think that limits his exposure to those outlier situations that can either be frustrating or even elating sometimes, because he doesn't ever, you know, himself get caught up in how he's feeling, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah. How do you feel about, by the way, we talked about it a little bit earlier when Astoria was playing, but first of all, I'm gonna say how you feel about the void ray, but 4 drones going down to these first adepts, maybe even, it's not gonna get the second shot off, but 4 drones for two adepts is really nice. Nate, how do you feel about this Void Ray opener? You know, we talked about, you kill Overlords, but in the context of playing Serral, how do you feel about it?
I don't think it's... I think, like, people always feel like you can do more with other units because, like, they would say, oh, an Oracle could defend against these Lings better. But, you know, the trade-off, the Void Ray, while it doesn't have that same damage or speed, it can attack forever. So I think that because of the type of attack he was hit with, he might be thinking that something similar could happen again. I don't know necessarily that Serral is the kind of guy to just do something like that twice in a row. But the fact that he's going for follow-up Void Rays, Bayo, that's maybe more interesting. Is this like, We're going to do 2 or 3. Because obviously, like you said, he can go get overlords around the map. But I think history has shown light Void Ray harass versus Zerg isn't really a thing. Like heavy Void Ray harass, very much so a thing. You go speed voids, like that was a thing for a while, whatever. Kind of got nerfed out. But Void Rays are not really, you're not making like 2 of them and showing up, blowing things up and then leaving. It's not, it doesn't really happen.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. This is nice, is pulling it. He's got his own bag of tricks, and he's like, he's Mary Poppinsing it, right? Like he's deep in that bag of tricks. He's pulling something that hasn't seen the light of day in 50 years. There's double Robo on the way behind this. So he's got double Voids. He's not making any more of them. But he's got double Robo into the Twilight, into the Forge. Is this just like a mass? Serral, if you build roaches, I will kill every single one of them. I'm going to build Immortals and Void Rays, and that's going to be, I don't know. But I don't know what Serral's figured out, but he's got a Spire on the way behind this, and this is like the perfect answer to whatever it is. I don't know what Nice wants to go for just yet. Apparently it's double Observer is the answer, but whatever it is that Nice wants to go for, Spire kind of counters all of it. Spire is so good against Robo play.
It's very, very interesting to consider too. That he has the Stargate. We know that. He's shown the Oracle, he's shown the Void Rays, and Serral is getting the Spire. So on one hand, we can say that double Robo for Immortal production to deal with a possible Roach counter, Ravagers, whatever, and then going to like any +1 charge behind it. That can be really strong to deal with the ground units. And then the thought process might be, well, hey, then he switches into air and catches them off guard because that's good against the Robo. But by opening with the Stargate, he's also kind of telling Serral, he's like, if you try this, I have what I need to not be completely caught off guard by it. So if Serral were to try to do something with that Spire, something aggressively, then I think we're looking at a pretty, that's a pretty committed play from him and possibly putting the game on it. So I'm interested. The Spire is done. Is he going to make anything with it? Are we going to see some roaches and stay him stick on the ground? I'm not sure, but there are those mutas. So he's saying, maybe I want to bait you into throwing down extra Stargates and a Fleet Beacon. I don't know. But so far, okay, well, he's going up to 9.
Yeah, well, 9 is the nice number, right? I think it's number 6 that one-shots a probe. 9, of course, allows you to A, one-shot probes, B, punch through shield battery, and C, have the glaive bounce for effect. So 9 is a solid number. He actually might even go for more than that. But importantly here, you talk about having a Stargate and that allowing Nice to respond to Mutaplay. Single Stargate doesn't really give you that response. It's like, yeah, you can get a Phoenix out one at a time, but if a Zerg is off of 4 base, 8 gas building mutas, single Stargate doesn't come close. So yes, there are Phoenix on the way. There is a Phoenix on the way, just one. And yes, there are a couple Voids, but the problem here, yeah, first of all, Serral's not committing to air, right? He's not building like 30 mutas and going, he's not going full dark style or something. But the problem is that this setup from Serral hard counters everything, every story that Nice wants to tell in this game. Yes, he's got a Phoenix, and yeah, sure, fine. This double Robo Colossus idea that Nice was getting himself set up for, it cannot exist. It is not allowed to be a story that Nice is able to tell. So even if Serral loses all these mutas and only gets like 10 probes or something, I'm still going to call it a win because A, it's a big scout, and B, all the money that Nice is committed to this anti-ground idea is being spent elsewhere. That means that Serral, as he maxes out on ground and gets the hive done and everything else, is not going to work out nearly as well.
I actually kind of gets him to extend a little bit there with the mutas, but I mean, it doesn't seem like the play was really to commit with those as much as he did. However, I felt like he got some pretty good damage there. And to your point, it's kind of like a Motley Crue type of army. He's got a couple Phoenix, couple Void Rays, a couple Immortals, an Archon, couple Sentries, and a few non-blink Stalkers, and then 4 charge lots. So it's obviously not the type of well-rounded composition that you look at and you think, yeah, this can deal with a crap ton of Banelings and Lings and Roaches and Ravagers. So I do not know what to expect. This fight could get really ugly because Serral has a force that should be built to overwhelm, and we have the transition into the Fleet Beacon and Storm happening, but Storm is 20 seconds in, so he's got about a full minute before he can use that. I guess he's just hoping Serral just keeps on chilling, I guess. Well, he needs Bane speed, so that's about to finish, but yeah, it's awkward. Attacking into Protoss in a situation like this also kind of feels like how you would throw, too.
I mean, maybe, but
it's Serral.
He's also, I mean, he's got such a supply lead right now. This army is powerful. And I love what Serral's up. He's just got a couple corruptors, which are not a ton, but maybe it's forced his opponent to think that this is a Muta corruptor. Now it's not. Files are going to go down. Bailey's not really allowed to make the best connections, though. Now they will, getting on top of things. And Serral targets down, well, whatever he can. Cannons go down. The Banelings continue to crash on top of this. All the chaff is gone. The wheat's still here for now. But the Banelings are just barely knocking everything down until they're all dead. So now the Colossus are falling. Now the Immortals are going down. 25 probes die. But on the backside, with all these Phoenix, with the teleporting in, it's really hard for Serral to run away. But Nate, even as I say that, look at the supply here. Look at the reinforcements. Yeah, Nice didn't die from this, but he's not really a liver either.
Yeah, it's one of those things where he traded out a lot and it looked like, oh yeah, he killed so much stuff, but the Immortal's gone, right? That Archon's gone. He does have the one Colossus, and to some degree, it's not like the Colossus air-based army doesn't have an ability to fight stuff head to head. It's just that it's very awkward, and then the Corruptors become more of an issue as you commit to having those Colossus be your main army. And well, you can see the Phoenix, they're never going to have a good time with that. So Serral, huge amount of Lings run over to the natural, does kind of pull the Zealot out of the wall, but he's not going to commit fully to it. And I guess for Serral, he's just happy to take bases and get the economy up while he does this kind of attack. So it's not anything super committed. He's just sending in the Lings, but it is a lot of them.
Yeah, and their adrenaline finish kind of right as that attack happens. So maybe that's kind of always like, oh, you know, I'm going to wait 30 seconds or 10 seconds. My adrenaline's going to be done, and I'm still going to get a lot of damage done here. Lings killing Zealots feels a little bit weird, but when you have this level of an upgrade lead, actually, I guess not technically an upgrade lead, but adrenal counts for a lot. So he's going to make that happen. Supply lead's always going to be pretty nice. Now, so Serral in part also doing this because he's waiting for Broodlords. 6 of them are on the way, building a couple more Corruptors. Nice will have a mothership for this. That is cloaking. That is a slow zone that can be useful. But I don't know that there's enough of an army. Like, he built these additional Stargates, Nate. He's not building anything out of them. This singular mothership is the full extent of having +1 air, having all these additional Stargates, and that's not really what you're looking for. You want more.
It's just awkward again. You look at the army and you're like, it's not something that's really it's not very inspiring. You know, he has the Storm, which we know is good, but he's got to get something in there that he can use to more or less force Serral to attack into him, right? And that's the Broodlords serve that role for him as he's about to make his push, and I don't even know if there's time for that consideration anymore on the part of Nice, but he's gonna try and drop this gold right in his face as he's got a lot of creep tumors, got spores moving up on this, and I think that's what makes it so difficult. You make an excellent point. By not having that transition into a backbone that can really force Serral to have to commit to a fight to kill him, there's just not a lot that he can really do. It's like, yeah, he's got Archons, he's got the mothership, but you're not moving into open space to try and engage mass Broodlord Queen with that either.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, okay, on top of that, what do you have that can get on top of these Broodlords? I mean, that's a lot of Archons on the north side. Baneling run by is not gonna accomplish much. This is a very gas expensive army, by the way, from Nice. He's got 4,300 gas here, and he's only at 175 supply. Even still, I mean, getting on top of these Broods feels so. Yes, there are Tempests on the way, I guess, but no, you want 5 to, I mean, those Storms are really good, Nate. A couple more of those.
He activates the cloak right as the first Tempests come out, so Corruptors can't really dive forward too far to get them. He does have the Sieged Overseer on the other side, so he has a little bit of peek into that shroud. I think the Tempest actually just focused down the Overseer. Very good play there. So Serral decides instead to try and go for that third base, and he's going to commit up the ramp on that side. Time Warp, however, hits all of the Broodlords, trying to hold them in place for the Archons and the Storm, but they are not going to be able to reach their target. Now retreating back over towards the east side. Fourth is Nice. Nothing can reinforce from the main base because he's got the whole army sitting in his third. Another Tempest is going to come out, and perhaps just with the shield battery and that inkling, that little inkling of Stalkers on the ground, he is able to buy himself another fight. I'm going to assume. It seems like he has routed this. The Broodlords are going to continue to be annoying, but he's going to chase them down and trade out as many Stalkers as he can for them.
Sure, fine. Nice lost the third base. Nice on 54 workers. Mothership died of spores.
Finished the mothership. The Spore Crawler got the mothership. That's, yeah, GG.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, yeah, sure. Serral technically was rebuffed.